Grainrot, I wanted to make some tier lists for, and the first tier list on my list of tier lists is for every single enemy in the game. And I've got them all compiled here. If you want to give it a try, it'll of course be linked in the description, or will be in the future if it's not now, for every single enemy. And I've got some strong feelings about these enemies, so I really wanted to kind of jump into it and run through that, because I've noticed some people do disagree with me, or at least at first, like, well, why would you think that about that enemy? So let's just go right into it. Let's go with the Belcher. Gosh, there are ads immediately. Let's go with the Belcher. So the first enemy we're going to look at is the Belcher. Pyramid 1's just scary. Yeah. People are kind of talking in my chat right now about different tier lists, like making a tier list around the different locations. Pyramid is particularly scary, but let's stay on task here. So Belcher, I will also, just to make sure, I've got an idea for each of these already. But Belcher, I would say, is probably the most dangerous flying enemy. Would be my argument. Belcher is tough for two reasons. One, Belcher will vomit at you and give you Grainrot, which will allow you to damage other surrounding enemies or like allies of yours, destroy the stuff that you're holding on to, and they also have a decent amount of health. So I do consider Belcher to be a pretty dangerous one. I'm not going to put them S tier. I would say that is a bit extreme, but I would say above average. So if we're going to say S tier is the most dangerous enemies in the game and D tier is the least, B is a fairly average enemy, I think Belcher does go a little bit above. It's certainly not as strong as some of the craziest enemies on this list, but for sure a dangerous one. So that is my thought on Belcher. Let me make sure, here we go, make sure this is pulled up. So Belcher to start with. I've run into Belcher a few different times and had some struggles because, one, when they damage my stuff, it's really tough, but also they tend to swing kind of wildly as well, which is also why they're a bit harder than the break even, is that as they're attacking you, they'll swing in and out of the way, and so you'll go to swing at them and they'll just kind of yank this way, yank that way. They're fairly unpredictable of a creature. So keep that in mind for the Belcher. The number one thing I would say for fighting them is actually to focus on shooting or attacking the top part here. It's the most stable part. They get really distract you with the head movement. They do a lot of bobbing. So that's Belcher. Now on to the next. So Belcher in A tier. Can't wait to see where Buzzer is if we talk about how hard it hit. Hard to hit? Yeah, true. Yeah. I mean, you might find it interesting. From my perspective, we'll go now to Big Jack. So Big Jack, I consider Big Jack to be... So here's kind of the tough thing. Big Jack was the first enemy that I felt like I solved. So it makes me want to put them fairly low, but realistically, if you're out in the hallway and not just cramping or camping around the elevator or around the extractor, then they're somewhat dangerous, especially when you're newer. So, like, let's say, for example, I'm running along, this guy comes in from the other side of the hallway, I'm mid-hallway, got a lot of space behind me there in front of me, they can charge, and I really can't do anything about it. They do a ton of damage, and unless I have a ranged weapon to take them up before they reach me, I'm just out of options. So I do think Big Jack, and that doesn't mean that they're super high up, but Big Jack, despite being very easy to bait into the extractor, does have really strong attack damage and can be pretty spooky in the right situations. So not only they charge and fall, it's a good point. So they'll even charge around certain things. With the extractor, they do tend to slam into the wall of it so quickly and just stop. But I do sometimes forget that they will charge and kind of go around things even in some situations to get at you. Just the extractor, for whatever reason, is much harder for them to do at. But for all those reasons, I would say they've got, again, I would say probably the easiest bait into the extractor and one of the harder ends of damage dealt to you and dealing with them in outside extractor situations. So to balance that out into the middle, that's kind of how I see them. I think that's correct. I think that's fair. I might even... The tough thing is they're so easy in the extractor and they're fairly slow. And they announce themselves a lot, so it's going to be between B and C for me for this one. B tier, C tier, somewhere in there. It might even, you know what? For now, I'm going to put them in C tier, because I do think it is crazy how easy they are to destroy with the extractor. So if you ever hear them, you just run back. So for an early player, your first missions... I'm imagining a player existing in a very big map when I'm talking about this, but actually up to the 10th map or so, you really aren't dealing with very large maps. So you can almost always bait them back to the extractor. So B feels even a little bit high to me. A little bit high. difficulty or strength, I would say we're sort of talking about, I guess, the challenge of this enemy for a player mostly up to the end of the quests, maybe up to being the second boss is kind of how I'm looking at it. Because after that, you start to get crazy room strength, and I think it gets out of hand at that point. But all right, so that is Big Jack. That's my feeling. It's somewhere in there. I would accept a B. I would accept a B, but I think I'm going to go with C in that case. And next up, we'll go with Bigger Jack. I mean, I'm kind of going alphabetical here, but Bigger Jack is a lot stronger. This is a pretty massive increase for a couple of reasons. One thing is that Bigger Jack does that jump and slam attack, and their general movement and attacking abilities are a lot stronger. But maybe more importantly, you have no extractor. So assuming someone completed all the quests outside, I would say, yeah, up to completing all the quests and beating the second boss. Like, these are the two things that I would say. Anything beyond that, you really start to get into sort of post-game area, which I think is unfair to the creatures because it just, things get really switched around at that point. How's it going, Vetras? Nice to have you in. Glad to have you. Thanks for the water reminder. So Bigger Jack here, again, compared to Big Jack, has some specific advantages. The arena is much more suited towards them. The attack patterns are stronger, harder, and they do unreal damage. So if you thought Big Jack was tough, considering they do more damage than every other creature before, like, I think Big Jack does maybe 50 health in terms of damage, where the other creatures were only doing maybe 20 for a basic attack, maybe 30. So Big Jack normally is pretty threatening, a 2 attack to kill. Bigger Jack does, I want to say, like 200 something. They're way harder. Chipper is S tier difficulty. Well, we'll get to that. So let me throw Bigger Jack. Thanks for the follow. Yo, appreciate you very much. It goes a long way, you know. Really do appreciate it. Glad to see you're enjoying. So let me go ahead and throw Bigger Jack. My thought process here is to put them into A. Because despite all of that, the one sort of downside there is they are easy-ish to bait into the pillars around the arena. And that's part of it. They are definitely above Belcher, though. I mean, it's not like, at that stage, they're definitely above Belcher. But like, I do think that there's a couple that are still stronger by enough that I want to shift them around. Low HP 2, yeah. I think this is a fair position for them. You know, you could argue them towards S tier, but I think it would do a disservice to what I have in S tier. All right. So that is Bigger Jack. Let's move on now to Boom Baby. Boom Baby. I mean, this one's it's hard to really state this one as being very high. The thing with Boom Baby is it can destroy your stuff, which is threatening, but I would actually say Boom Baby might be one of the weakest enemies in the game, just because, like, if you kill them, they do leave the dynamite around, but you can also just bait them wherever you want before killing them, so you're kind of being given a free decision on what you want to do with them. You could even bait them into an enemy and let them blow up there. Like, they're like a gift, almost. So I think Boom Baby is probably going to be a simple D tier. I think I can't really feel too bad about that. They're a unique enemy in that way. Probably the most that way of any enemy, except for maybe one, which we'll get into. So that's Boom Baby. Let me see. So these are still good. I was going to say, should I rearrange any orders here? But we've only got 2 in A, and the rest are just singular in their spaces. So I think that's fairly reasonable. The one shot me when I saw them for the first time at Bigger Jack. Yeah, Bigger Jack's scary. They're scary for the first time, particularly. They can for sure one-shot it. They do at least 200 plus damage. So A tier, if anything is low, it's certainly not high from my perspective, comparing it to anything else. Of course, I will say, you can fight Belcher level 1. You can fight Big Jack level 1. Boom Baby level 1. You cannot fight Bigger Jack level 1. It's specifically a boss, making it level 5 plus. So I think anything, I think that's fair. Like, at level 5 to level 10, you'll probably have at least have a weapon. You might run in there and be underprepared, which is spooky. So it's a toss-up for sure. Ashkin, thanks for coming around. Hope you're enjoying. Gift unless you run out of stamina. True, Boom Baby can be spooky, but it's really hard to give them any kind of credit in this situation for me. The next one here will be Boompa. Boompa. Funny the names of these things. So there's Boom Baby and Boompa, which implies sort of a connection to me. But okay, we have Boompa here. Boompa is a spider spawning, blowing up sort of enemy. And, you know, okay. This one's also, like, back earlier where I was talking about Big Jack, putting them in B or C, the reason they're not either even lower or even higher. I would say this is the character that really made me consider this and think about it. Is like when I'm a new player, what is threatening and what's kind of what's not really. So Boompa is one that I do think could. He's named after Goompa. Yeah, like Goompa. But yeah, I do think this is a character that could theoretically be threatening to a group of players, but at least in solo, I do think that these ones are disproportionately weak compared to a lot of other enemies and characters. So the trouble with them is, like, one thing is that they're just so predictable. So you get in close, they are either going to summon a spider, which can damage themselves, and it makes the noise to warn you of when it's going to go off, or the Boompa will jump and slam down and then blow up. But there's just so much time there for you to just back up a little bit and be fine. And the fact that you don't actually need anything besides themselves to destroy them, like, I don't need a weapon for this fight. I can literally just let you make spiders to destroy yourself with, is crazy. So yeah, very predictable and self-destructive makes them a pretty easy B tier as well. It almost feels bad. It almost feels bad, to be honest, but I think that they're actually weaker than Boom Baby, because Boom Baby at least can catch you low on stamina, or, I mean, in theory with low stamina, you could break them and then run away and have time to escape, but Boom Baby does have these scenarios where they could become a problem for you and also destroy your stuff. Boompa, if your stuff gets destroyed by Boompa, you either left a spider next to it or you left them next to it while exploding, and you don't have to do that. So, you know, it's tough. It's tough back to back to back, and to have these weaker enemies. But these, it's fair. I mean, it's sort of what they are. I think I'm going to jump now a little bit in and go with. Oh, this is tricky actually. Which one should I go with? Let's try to go with one that's kind of interesting here. I'm going to go with. Where are you exactly? Make sure I'm going to see that. Where's my pictures of you? Here we go. The Observer. The Observer is an interesting one, and a sort of a unique one, because the Observer is actually the most, I would say, if I were to consider there to be baseline enemies that aren't in some way special or powerful, Observer has got to be way up there. Ashkin, appreciate the hi. How you doing? It's got to be sort of special because although, yes, they can laser, and that basic laser attack isn't that threatening, and yes, they have the eye thing, which technically cannot be threatening in situations, the real threat that they offer, there's two of them. One is that other enemies, you're so susceptible to everything else around you while they're locking their gaze with you, because you can't attack or do anything about it, really, except for go behind a wall. So they're basically just forcing you to navigate in a specific way. But also, I find the eye lock-on thing to be sometimes sort of unpredictable. Like, mostly, if you go around an edge, in certain ways it works, but there's a couple ways where it doesn't work. Where if you go above a ledge and crouch, for example, you're not really seeing them, but they can still have you locked in. And that's just, like, as someone who's, like, going from start to finish, not realizing that meant that I lost 2 runs, actually, to this, where no other enemy of the basic type, I think, stood much chance to me. So they're pretty threatening in that way. Their laser also does a fair bit of damage. So there's a few reasons to really look at the Observer and think, holy cow, yeah, like, this is actually really threatening. And for a new player, I mean, like, there's got to be maybe nothing else quite like it. I remember watching some new players fight them, and it's like, yeah, you can't just keep space, do damage, keep space, do damage. That doesn't work against this guy. You have to go all in at the right moment and not get locked into anything. It's a whole deal. So I would put Observer high. In fact, I think where I would put Observer is, again, A tier, but I'm going to put them above Bigger Jack. I think that this is the most threatening unit we've seen so far. So there you have it. I mean, you might disagree with that. Maybe you think it should be lower than Big Jack at the very least, but I do think that that's fair, because you could find Observer first game, first area, and there's probably nobody else that you find first game, first area, first level that would be as threatening to you as a new player. And I do think it holds up pretty well from there, though there is a point where it stops holding up as well in terms of upgrades and progression. The next one that I'm going to do, gosh, there are a few in here. There are several in here. Which one should I really go for next? I mean, we did that. Maybe something. How about something like the Creep Stalker? That could be an interesting one to talk about. The Creep Stalker is a little buddy that's really hard to get good pictures of. They are camera shy for sure, but I managed to get a couple okay ones. Creep Stalker here is interesting because damaging them can sometimes be kind of challenging because they're so low to the ground. So when they jump and slash and attack you, they're able to just then zip back down to their lower positioning, which can be a little tough. I hate that thing. That's fair. That's fair, because it's creepy. It feels like it follows you for a lot longer than other things. I think the name is not just for show. It does feel like I get pretty far from this thing, and I'm hearing it talking to me, and I'm like, I'm so far from you right now, and I turn down a corner, and there it is again. How did it? But it just navigates through different hallways sometimes and finds you again. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe. But I kind of doubt it. Never stops knowing it's you. Ah, now that makes sense. It does feel like this one is very, very good at targeting. And so yeah, it is. It's a spooky one for that reason. It's also a spooky one because of, once again, how low it is to the ground, can be hard to hit. And however, compared to, I mean, like we just talked about the Observer, it's not as hard as the Observer. There's no question. The Belcher as well, the Bigger Jack, I think that these ones are stronger, undoubtedly. Bigger Jack can one-shot you unless you have a lot of HP. Observer can destroy you even with a pretty good system going against almost every other enemy. And the Belcher is really tough when it comes to your loot and when it comes to the Grainrot aspect, and it's hard to hit. So I think Creepstalker is below all of these. In terms of Big Jack now, we can talk. Big Jack is sort of a lumbering oaf. Very predictable. I do think Creepstalker beats them out, and I think it's by enough that I want to say B tier here. Can't use your spark after they know you. Ooh, really? I don't. There's might be some systems to Creepstalker that I'm not aware of as well. Paparosi is sort of the resident expert on combat, which I'm excited to get to layer 100 myself at least, and just try to understand things a little better as I go. But I really appreciate that. Okay, you can't use your spark after they know you. So like if you use your spark, do they chase it down, or are you saying that you just literally can't pop into the spark at that point? That is interesting. Let's now get to a this one might be a controversial one. I don't know. I wonder how people will feel about this. But let's pull up Bozy The Clank. This might be my most, or at least my second most controversial take on this. But Bozy The Clank, here we go. I'm gonna have to think about this one. You know what? I might even adjust my initial thoughts. But let me tell you my initial thoughts. This is a tier list. Let's go. Yo, May, how's it going? I appreciate the follow there very much, Lucily. But yes, it's a tier list. So it's a tier list on every single enemy in the game, and I'm breaking them out into different tiers. And this is Bozy The Clank. Now, Bozy's an interesting one because Bozy does a couple things that are unique. So they have a wheel that they spin, and they have to take a certain amount of damage in order to go to the next phase. Now, I think I am secure on what I want to say here, but this is I even feel rough saying it, to be honest. But Bozy The Clank cannot be fought until at least level 10. At least level 10. So you're at least 10 layers into the game by the time you first fight this enemy. You're not going to have super crazy sniper and super crazy saw blade necessarily. But by this point in the game, you've probably fought at least a couple bosses, at which point you have learned how to sort of fight bosses and how they work. You've also fought every enemy in the game probably by this point. Maybe you're not fully experienced in all of them and really understanding all of them yet, but you are an experienced player by this point, assuredly. You've probably lost a few times. And so, Bozy, the way that they work is that they spin a wheel, and it lands on either a positive or negative. Let me see. Here we go. So the wheel is right over here. So they spin this wheel, and it either lands on positive or negative. If it's negative, they spawn in headcrabs, which I'll get to more later in terms of their difficulty. But I would say, particularly in this area, they are not very difficult because they only spawn a set amount, and so a lot of their advantage is gone. They also, though, spawn some radiators, a little bit dangerous, but not really that dangerous. You just kind of avoid them and you're all right. You can go up to the top floors if you feel like it and if you know to. And if you don't know to, you're usually pretty safe in terms of spacing. Alternatively, it can spawn actual weapons. Like, you can spawn in, like, the blasters. Like, it can spawn in... It's mostly going to spawn in the sort of, what is it, like the pistol-style weapon. And so if that spawns in the nail shooter or something like that, you can take that and use that against the boss and pretty much have enough damage to go through the entire health bar. The remainder of that health bar, let it drop again. If it's more weapons again, you just get a nail spitter. Just another weapon to go ahead and blast that boss with once again. So Bozy... weirdly, actually has a similar weakness to someone we saw a little bit ago. The weakest enemy in the game. Boompa. Boompa's weakness is that they self-destruct. And so you can, if you can come up with nothing, and they can just destroy themselves. So Let me see what Papa Rosie has to say right after I go to this answer. I'll consider what they have to say, and then maybe it'll adjust because I'm between two for Bozy. I think it would be unfair to say that Bozy is weaker than Boom Baby, but my current position on it is that it might actually be a D tier. This might be one of the weakest enemies in the game. Now, the reason being that it gives you every tool you need to fight it, and you necessarily cannot have fought Bozy until you at least have gotten 10 layers deep. The requirements, at least 10 layers, and the requirements for that require you to be pretty good at the game. There is no other enemy that you have to be as good at as a requirement for even facing them. So, which is crazy. But let me read this out. Let me read this out and let me consider, because I do think that they're, like, for example, when I went for 0 upgrades for the rooms, which, by the way, at 10 layers deep, you almost certainly have a decent amount of upgrades in the rooms, and I went for 0 items from the shop, so I literally cannot have purchased any weapons to come in with. I think when I went with that, yes, it was challenging. At 100 HP with no upgrades whatsoever and no weapons to speak of, having to pick things up and throw it at him to kill him, he's got a decent amount of HP. But if I went in there with anything, I would have killed him. So, but let me read this out. So we have, if you alert them, they will always follow your body. Oh, so that's talking about the creep stalker. Even if you lose sight of them and use your spark to hide, they will still go for your body. That's crazy. Oh, they go for the body even if the spark. Oh, so you escape with the spark, but they still destroy your body. That's really interesting when it comes to creep stalkers. Great intel. Bozy can also soft lock you if you run out of ammo. Sort of, except if you pick things up, you can throw it at him and damage him. I think you can get enough, especially with the barrels. Pick up the barrels and throw them at him. I think Bozy might be one of the weakest enemies in the game, and that's not even counting if you come in with a weapon. Because if you come in with a weapon, it's so easy. Well, actually, I guess I would say I would put Bozy pretty high up if you've got to have no weapon, no upgrades. It's a hard fight. It takes a while. Maybe not as high as some of the highest up things that I have in here, because they're much more threatening. There's just no way to solve them if you don't have a weapon. But they are, like, yeah, but like I would put Bozy at least at probably A tier if you've got no weapon, no upgrades, no items, right? Like that there is a way to do it, but it'd be very challenging. It's a puzzle. I've tried to do it myself. Let me see what we're saying here. Have a thought. He only spins the wheel if you get him to an HP threshold. True. So you have to come with something. Well, not necessarily. I think it'd be an interesting challenge to say, fight Bozy, 100 HP, no upgrades. I've done it before, so I know how hard it is. With just picking up items and throwing them at him. That actually does work, which is ridiculous. But I got very close. I was so close to winning that fight. It was a crazy back and forth. Bozy just gets 10 layers. You need at least 2 weapons to do anything. I genuinely, I do think, I'm talking myself more into it. I thought I'd be talking myself out of it because there is an argument to be made, like, Bozy compared to them. But at 10 layers, if you come with a weapon, you guaranteed win. And if you don't come with a weapon, you technically can still win. I'll try it. I like the idea. You might really enjoy it. And so when you do try it, do keep in mind this sort of argument that, like, it is hard, but if you can do that with literally nothing to your name, just picking up an item and throwing it at him, then imagine what you could do with a pistol, you know? Then he just drops more pistol, you have an infinite level pistol, and you just kill him with it. Like that, he's basically Boompa. He's the Boompa boss for level 10, you know? Now, if I was doing this at level 5, I think at least C, maybe B tier is fair, because you haven't fought almost anything yet. So, you know, to be fair to that. Say you can avoid all his attacks without moving, and you can heal. Yeah, and he also drops healing. Yeah, Bozy's got it. This is my most controversial take, I feel like, in some ways. But explaining it that way, I don't know if I'd have a lot of disagreeers, especially because I've already fought him before with nothing. So I know what it takes. It's hard, but with anything, you know. Anyway, is this from a base stat or tactical standpoint though? So the idea here is that on your way, and I appreciate the question, May, on your way from, let's say, never playing the game up to beating every quest and then getting to level 10 and fighting this boss, like that's the end point. So every single character here is being gauged based on, like, how does it feel from your journey from never having done anything to beating every quest and the second boss. That's like that journey. And so, like, that's how I'm ranking them. And Bozy would be the pinnacle, the very end of that, which I remember it did feel like a massive decrease in difficulty all of a sudden at level 10 like that. So that's my take. First time seeing him was at level 125. Crazy. Oh my gosh. And I was right in his face clipping his HP. Yeah. Because I fought him, like, during that time, I feel like this is fair. But yeah, well, level 125, it'd be hard to gauge how hard is he going to actually be for a newer player. But I do think he's not as challenging as it would seem. Okay, so now we have Bozy down. So there's kind of, yeah, I would say, a little bit of a crazy one. I wonder, though, I do think we might disagree on some of these pretty strongly, that I might not be able to talk you out of, genuinely. So I think it's time to get to that spot where we talk about, well, wait, hold on. So Buzzer, maybe we're fine on. Buzzer, maybe we're fine. This is Buzzer, because Buzzer is the B. I think of Buzzer, and I think, oh, it's like a saw, like buzz, you know? But Buzzer is the B, and Chopper is the saw. Okay. So, Bozy, yeah, I think that's fair. Maybe low C. That's fair. That's fair. I could understand low C. I could understand low C. I'm totally fine with that as being a perspective. I think D is... I talked myself into it the more that I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, the fact he gives you every tool to fight him with, and you can technically beat him with nothing, is crazy. As a boss, especially. But you could definitely argue... C, because if you do get soft lock, it's not like... You're not really locked, but you're required to use the furniture to throw at him, and someone might not even think about that, and then they just lose, right? It's also possible. Say C solid, that's fair, that's fair, that's fair. You know, I knew this was going to be one of the more controversial opinions. But Buzzer now, let's look at Buzzer. So Buzzer the B, how strong is Buzzer? We're going to scrap an items to toss. True, but not really. Now, let me tell you why. So the barrels don't break or get damaged when you hit him with them. So that's what I found as I got to the end, because I'd used everything, and he was now down to about a third HP, and then I was hitting with the barrels, and the barrels weren't losing any health at all, and I was doing damage, the same damage to him. I was like, oh, wow, this is crazy. Secondarily, even if you're soft-locked in that way, let's say that because I do think it's possible that he can break them, it's just that it's unlikely. So another thing that character does is following Subathon. Yeah, Metallics, how you doing? So another thing that character does, and nice to see you, Metallics. Great to see you. Thanks for coming in. So when this is crazy because this is all about Bozy the Clank. What am I doing? But I'm one finishing thought is that this character, you look at him here and you say, okay, so everything I've said, okay, we take the painting off the wall, throw it at him. Take this, breaks. Okay, barrels. Take the barrels, throw it at him. That doesn't break. Well, sometimes it does. In theory, you get a soft lock. Unlikely, but could happen. One final answer to Bozy the Clank: the balloon. He summons them for you. He's just giving it away. You pick up the balloon, you throw it in his face, and he does damage to him. You cannot be soft-locked by this character, technically, because he gives you the supply of ammo you need to win. Anyway, all right. So there's my final argument for Bozy. I do think Bozy's solid in D. I think C is a fine argument as well. Now let's go on to Buzzer. Buzzer B. How many enemies in the game? How many enemies? Let's check this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 17. Is that right? But okay. 12 or 13 plus bosses. And yeah. So something like that. So I think around 17. We've got Buzzer the Bee. So Buzzer the Bee, where would you place? Depends if you add spiders. That's a good point. Spiders and bosses are also being added for me, but you don't have to necessarily. Controls, yeah. So with the controls there, Metallics, the controls are something that we'll be doing more of later. I did them for like 5 hours at the start of the stream, before the start of the stream, but are a way for you to control the game as I'm playing it, which I think I spent a little while on. It works reasonably well. I want to add spiders. What is this? How's it going, Pink Spots? We're ranking all the enemies in Grainrot, and there are a number of them. But we're on right now to Buzzer the Bee. Before I go on another tangent. Buzzer the Bee is interesting. I think Buzzer... The thing about Buzzer is that... Well, okay, here's one argument for why they could be higher. Is that as they're attacking you, they do swing around a lot, making them somewhat harder to hit. However, I don't think it outweighs their lack of HP, ability to destroy themselves, and very low output of damage. I remember in fighting them, even in the early levels, that they just never were that much of a threat. They are annoying, and they can damage things... But okay, this is tough. This is tough. I think it's fair if you want to say that they're a C tier, but I don't know how you walk any higher than that. And I think I'm giving something away here. Because I wouldn't mind putting them in D tier, to be frank with you. I think Buzzer has such low HP and is such a low level threat compared to everything else that I've just never found them challenging in any situation. They do sometimes mess with your loot, but so does Boom Baby. So does Boompa. Yeah. So I think it's a challenging thing, and I really, I even would justify putting them in D tier, which is tough, but yeah, he's kind of weak. How do you get them to damage themselves? If they shoot a wall, their shots explode. So Yeah, it's hard for me to go even above D. I could maybe go to C if someone wanted to argue that the damage to loot is a real threat, I suppose, because they can survive a long time and keep damaging loot, where Boom Baby, you can bait into a spot or kill in the right spot and then run away and have it make sure you don't destroy the right thing. Like, I kind of understand that argument, but I think it's kind of a weak one. Like, it's not really that threatening to have a few items damaged as well. Like, you can survive, especially going up. You know what? Now, here's where it gets tricky. I think even within that the damage and effectiveness of them might be low enough. I might put them below Boom Baby. Bozy can stay at the top of D. I think that's fair. Boom Baby might even be a little above. It's a bit tough. The reason for C, I'm open to listening to any kind of arguments here. I might not change my opinion on it, but I will 100% listen. Just knowing, let me read back. Let me make sure, because I think I missed a couple messages. Dangerous can knock around the coins. True. Although, you know, to what extent do you concern yourself with these things? D at least. What are we saying here? Let me make sure. Let me see. D at least. Buzzer is weak and annoying, not dangerous, but can knock around your coins. Break items. True. Weak and annoying makes them higher tier. I can understand. We might disagree heavily on this one, which is interesting, but not that surprising. There's some of the enemies that I've never found to be too challenging, but that might situationally have a problem that I just haven't run into. Like someone, I could totally see, for example, on the flip side of this, that someone might find Observer to be closer to a C tier because of their low HP and predictability, and they also do sometimes just walk onto the extractor. Totally fair. I find them to be A tier for the reasons that I've listed, but if you've never run into that specific issue and then you get too strong to have to deal with it anymore, then there's never a point where you feel like they're going to be too strong. That could be the same thing happening with Buzzer here for me. It's very possible. So, I'm open to it. Let me see here. So, I'm open to that argument. That's fair. Get them to damage themselves. I agree with D to C. He's like a mosquito. Same D. Annoying can be a thorn if you're planning something. That's fair. I would never want to be building something really cool in the base and just have them pelted away, for example. That'd be kind of annoying. Like, because you could build some cool stuff downstairs and kind of have it all be ruined and go to the wind. A tier list? Yo, okay, if yeah, we're doing a tier list of enemies. And this is just the first tier list of many. We've got a few of them planned today. There's other things as well, like pushing to the deepest floor levels. But I appreciate you popping in. I hope you will enjoy your time here. So hoarding coin extraction or holding loot, that's fair. How are we ranking here in basis of how powerful they are or how much fun you had? It's powerful, and it's powerful specifically up to beating the second boss at around floor 10. So you beat all the missions up before you get there. Like 99% of the people will do that. Is they beat all the missions before they fight the second boss, and they get to the second boss around floor 10 to beat that second boss, and that's really where it cuts off in terms of this. All right, but let me move up, okay? So I know I've been missing messages. I'm working my way down. Didn't realize that was AoE. Yeah, the explosion. Yeah, Boom Baby, exactly. Only reason for C IMO would be the range when they see you across the room. So you're saying, yeah, the shots across the room. I could see the argument, but I think it's so compare. Yeah, you could say comparing them to Chopper or something like that. Possibly or Chipper, I should say. But it's a fair point, but I don't really find that often matters because they shoot so wildly they miss half the time anyway. So that also goes to their discredit. But let's scroll up here. Let me see here. So Observer can end you quick. I do think so. Do a day one tier list. Yeah, like your first attempts at anything. But all this would change. Day one tier list. I wonder. Got all the names. Yeah, I got all the names. Yep. Have you joined a guild yet? Yeah, Oakmind. And then you were all not doing bounties. When you get to him, can you explain how the Rotten Kid works? I certainly can, other than the freak out when you hit it. Yeah, for sure. We attempted it. Let me see. Sure. Oh yeah, I know no one got that bounty, which is fair. I didn't get around to attempting it because I've been working for this for a while, but got home with 30 minutes left, and me and Trevor tried it. Yeah. Time is going to be a tough thing because I know the bounties are pretty short, oftentimes. All right, so there you go. Let me move on to the next one. We've gone through them. Any spot open in said clan? There's always places open. Head to the Grainrot Discord, go to guilds, and do /guild test, and that will take you exactly where you need to be. Let me go here. So the next character, we just did Buzzer. I'm glad that we agreed on that one because I didn't know if we would. I know not everyone fully agreed. Maybe C. A little bit of variation here. That's fair. Make your own list if you want. I've got it posted in there. And if you haven't already seen it posted, let me go ahead and repost it one time here, just because you may want to make this alongside me, and that's fair. But let me send it in. But we carry forward now to the next enemy. A long time on Buzzer there. Chipper. Oh, I wonder with Chipper. What are people going to feel? But let me just say my thoughts, okay? So Chipper here. Comparing to Buzzer, I do think Chipper is more challenging. And I don't know what... I would imagine people will agree with me on that, because Chipper is more likely to break stuff in front of you, is more likely to wedge themselves into you, is more like they destroy everything around themselves, and so their effect on their environment is, I believe, a great deal stronger than Buzzer. Buzzer does blow and move things around, but Chipper breaks them actively whenever touching them, is unpredictable or fairly unpredictable in their movement, very fast, very aggressive. So I think Chipper is harder, both in the late game and in the early game. Not that late game matters as much for this discussion. I think in the early game in particular, if I'm fighting Buzzer, I pretty much can just walk past them and nothing's going to happen to me. 99%. Like, virtually every time, Buzzer, we just ignore them, nothing goes on. Chipper, though, Chipper's going to chase me down, be a nuisance, break stuff around me, and if I don't have a weapon yet, and we're talking about level 1 even, for example, because they will show up on level 1, or often do, actually a pretty big issue. So I would say Chipper is higher tier than Buzzer. I think that's a fair point, although Buzzer is the lowest, but I would argue definitively higher. And I would say also then above Boom Baby in terms of being annoying, above Bozy the Clank in terms of not being self-destructive. Big Jack, maybe in that range. Creep Stalker to me is a bit more threatening, I think, because Creep Stalker will chase you forever and is hard to hit and does way better damage. I think Chipper is a bit more predictable than Creep Stalker, where if I'm running around, Creep Stalker is going to chase me around in these funky different ways. Chipper tends to just bolt straight at you as well as it can, and it's easy for it to get wedged into rooms and stopped up by things, because it just kind of bounces off walls and can't figure itself out. So there's like up and down on Chipper. They're worse than Bozy the Clank in some ways, but Big Jack somewhere in that territory, not as bad as Creep Stalker. How to decide against them between them and Big Jack will be a bit of a tough question. Let me look at this. Takes more time. Good, you all need a challenge. That one was failed 2 times so far. I need to tell him, give you a lot more time. Oh yeah, you're talking about the challenge. Goes in so fast, you guarantee to take some damage at least. Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point as well, because Buzzer will miss almost every shot that they take, where Chipper will almost always hit if they even get close. And that's a bit challenging as well. And so if you're carrying something too, then it's like now your stuff is getting destroyed and you're getting damaged potentially from just the bouncing all around. Also, when you get home, do you consider the fact that Chipper kills other corrupteds? This is a good point. Chipper will stick to you. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair, and it can be annoying for sure. So I think it's all pretty reasonable. Creep Stalker anticipates player movement. Yes. Creep Stalker is spooky. Creep Stalker is a spooky one in some ways. So I think Chipper above Big Jack is pretty fair because Big Jack again is so predictable. They do good damage if they can catch you, but they are less likely to catch you than most anything else. Most of the time, depending on your situation. So especially in the early game. So Big Jack is lucky to be in C, but I think it's a fair spot for him. Chipper definitely above them in C. Maybe at the low B, we're in that territory, but we'll leave them there for now. Now we move on. We move on to the next one. We go on to the Dread Crawler. Why am I going to Dread Crawler? Is this a good idea? I guess it is, yeah, because I did Creep Stalker earlier. Dread Crawler. Okay, Dread Crawler. And you'll remember that I put Bigger Jack in A tier. So we're going to be comparing, to start, we're going to compare these two because they're both bosses. So when you have a boss, you are going in, as we mentioned with Bozy the Clank, you are going in already a little into the game, not as far as Bozy, not level 10, but you're going in already at level 5 for these two bosses, Dreadcrawler and Bigger Jack. What are the key differences between these two characters? One thing is that, as discussed before, Dreadcrawler and Creep Stalker, they're low to the ground, kind of harder to hit in that way. I would also say that Dreadcrawler's ability to knock you out of your body is very scary for a new character. So they have a lunge attack that knocks you out of your body, and I even say past that, if I didn't have a whole lot going for me in terms of fighting an enemy, this is actually tough. This is actually tough because my feelings were pretty strong on this, but I'm considering all the things I've said so far. It's a bit challenging. But genuinely, this is actually pretty challenging. I think that Bigger Jack can be argued in where they are, though Bigger Jack might be too low, because I actually kind of think Dreadcrawler, I remember being closer to S tier. The first time you fight Dreadcrawler and Bigger Jack is often the first time that you've seen a boss and you don't know exactly what you're going in for. Dreadcrawler's jumping and slamming you out of the body is spooky, and then they chase you around very quickly. They're a lot, you know what, I think they're S tier, I think Bigger Jack is still A tier. I think that's still fair, and some of you might disagree with me. Because I think Dreadcrawler's actual big danger is not the damage that they deal, certainly, and it's also not the fact that they're low to the ground, though that is more threatening than Bigger Jack. It's not by a massive amount. The actual biggest threat for Dreadcrawler is the movement pattern. They are very aggressive and very focused on you, and so it's hard to get some distance as a newer player. So Bigger Jack has a lot of movements where they hit and then stop a while. Dreadcrawler is just gunning for you constantly. If you have multiple players, they'll alternate between. But if it's just you, Dreadcrawler is a great deal more dangerous than Bigger Jack. It took me a second because I was thinking, well, Bigger Jack can one-shot you. Like, Dreadcrawler knocks you out of your body, and you go back into your body. But I remember the first time I got knocked out of my body like that, I was like, oh god, he killed me in one shot. So I basically died in one shot anyway, because by the time I realized what was happening, went back in my body, then he just kills me again. And that's it. And so you have to just escape like that. I do think Bigger Jack might have a similar level of threat the first time, but I think Dreadcrawler, unless you had a weapon, even if you knew he could do that, is still more threatening than Bigger Jack because of movement patterns. There's my argument. Hard to do a tier list when you consider the different factors, like tier list for power, escapability, HP, attack kit, etc. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the movements, it's more than just the attack damage, it's more than just any of these individual things. It's all of it put into one. So it's a bit challenging. How do I say the name? Ants? But is giving into the first boss fight, and I really want to read that because I had my first boss fight was with Dreadcrawler, so I know I'm a little bit biased. But I do think if I had to fight one or the other with nothing or virtually nothing, I would take Bigger Jack all day because of their movement patterns. I think. If I had just like a bat, for example, I would take Bigger Jack because Dreadcrawler is just so gunning for you. But I'm curious. Hard to do a tier list with all these factors. First time I thought I died when I got into my body. Exactly. I feel like everyone feels that way when they first fight them. Can't wait to see Spider. S tier, of course. Nice. It's the grief they create. Oh, so you were saying about Spider. So I wonder what you think of Dreadcrawler here. If Dreadcrawler is fair in S tier, if that's crazy or not. Were you saying S tier to Dreadcrawler or S tier to Spider? Because that joke, meant that I don't actually know. I'm curious what you think of this. It's the grief they create, I feel. Yeah, the sudden knocking out of your body is so scary. I do think there's a chance that maybe Bigger Jack would have smashed me and I'd change my opinion, but let's see. So Bigger Jack was my first boss, and he felt, with my items at the time, easier than even some creep stalkers. Okay, good to see. I wasn't sure what you might say there, because if you said he jumped at me and smashed me and I just lost immediately and I was like, what's going on? I would understand that. I think that's a fair spot, potentially. Aguchi Lama, thanks so much for the follow. It really goes a long way. Really do appreciate you very much. So Bigger Jack was my first boss. He felt with my items at the time. And that's the thing is, you're 5 layers deep, and you might have already lost a couple times, even potentially. So you have more going in. That's Bozy's biggest issue is the amount going in, and the fact that he's like with these bosses, you go in, if you don't bring stuff with you, you are dead. With Bozy, you're not. So because there's nothing you can grab around the arena to hit them with. Even if you're like really min-max, like even if you're really trying to go with like how could I theoretically do it, you got your fists, you know. So these are in a lot of ways a lot more dangerous bosses for the first facing, especially than Bozy is, and even for any facing. Well, let's see. So I finished the main story, and this is the first time seeing Dreadcrawler. Now I'm scared to go back. I think if you get upgrades enough, you probably will be okay. You probably be okay. But yeah, Dreadcrawler is certainly spooky. S tier Spider, LOL. I feel like both elites are easy, to be honest. That's fair. Both elites are easy, to be honest. That's fair, I suppose. Well, it's fair, but I think the first time you face them, having no familiarity with them, they are a step up from every other enemy in that one knocks you out of your body, which you don't experience, especially in solo until then, and the other one can one-shot you. So, like, even if they are technically easy, if you come in without a weapon, because you've never fought a boss before, you maybe went around the entire place before finally finding it, so you have no weapon, or you have, like, very little weapon, then all of a sudden, okay, you start, and now there's a guy coming at you, so you're like, okay, I can use my weapon a little bit for what I have with it. Maybe I scoot in. Like, the first thing that I did when I fought a boss, actually, was dropkick. Because the game teaches you dropkicking is so OP, so I'm like, okay, here we go. Like, at least I can do this, I can get some whales into him, then my weapon will break, fine. But at least I'll have done some damage, and I can focus on dropkicking from there and punching, and that's okay. And instead, I dropkick, and they literally don't even care, and knock me on my body and break my body. And it's like, okay, well, fine then. I guess here we are. Yeah, Dreadcrawler's spooky for sure. All right, so that's my perspective on it, okay? And I think up to level 5, this is reasonable as to what could happen to you. It's what happened to me, and I think a lot of people probably have a similar-ish situation where they haven't yet invested a lot in weaponry or in upgrades. So now let's go to the next one. But I would understand an argument that these could go lower because necessitating level 5 is going to push some people to have already done a lot in the game before they even get there. Now let's get over to the next one. Okay, I gotta skip around a little bit here. Let's go with Spider, actually, because you just mentioned it. Let's go with Spider. Let me make sure. Okay, so Spider here. So Spider. What can I say? Okay, Spider actually... My original placement for this, I think, might be wrong. I have to think about this. So as a newer player, I don't remember feeling like these guys were all that powerful, because I don't think you can get, well, I'm sure you could get Spider. You can get Spider anytime because it's just a roll of the dice, actually. But the odds of Spider are lower because you have a higher chance of blanks when you first start because you haven't upgraded the basement room yet. So your odds of getting Spider early are fairly low, and my experience was that by the time I got Spider, they weren't super threatening. But I do think a couple things about Spider are annoying that make them uniquely annoying relative to some other units. So let's kind of consider this. So I think Buzzer you can basically ignore. Boompa can destroy itself. Boom Baby you can plan around pretty easily, and almost immediately I knew to do that because they're so loud about what they're about to do. They very much announce themselves to a new player. Bozy though, Bozy feels a little unfair here to put it. So I do think Spider is worse than those, and let me tell you why it's worse than Boom Baby, Buzzer, and Boompa. It's because there's a spider in every room, pretty much, or just about. And so they're spawning in. As you take your loot and you're trying to rush around and get back, go to the extractor, come back out, before everyone spawns in, before everything comes and gets you, you're trying to get everything. I'm holding maybe a crate or a bin of some kind, I'm holding an item, and I'm running along, and boom, a spider spawns up out of the ground, and immediately, before their head is even poked out of the ground, as soon as the spawn starts, their body is effectively there. There's enough height there that it knocks everything I have over. I have to deal with this guy in the way. Everyone else is around me. There may be something chasing me. So, like, Spider is certainly weirdly challenging in that way, where the individual enemy is pretty weak. So I do think it'd be fair to move this above Boompa, above Buzzer, and above Boom Baby. But I don't know if I can justify above Bozy the Clank. Spider's effectively just like a mildly irritating level variable, but not really a proper enemy. Which is interesting to say because Buzzer, Boom Baby, and Boompa are considered three of the main enemies of the game. But I think each of those are just nothing to write home about, and they're way less consistent and way less irritating. So yeah, I would say Spider in D tier. I really can't afford to put him anywhere above that. It's just not fair to throw them any higher. But they're not the weakest enemy in the game, not by any means, in my perspective. I mean, Boompa, I feel like maybe I'm doing a disservice to Boompa, but they're just, like, I think this is right. I think this is right so far. I think it's a bit of a stretch because you can see the spawn location. True. Like, not in terms of, so I'm not saying these are the enemies that likely kill you. I'm saying, like, as I'm going up, which of the enemies are the biggest, like, strain or challenge to it? So, like, in theory, you could lose to Boom Baby or Boompa, but good plays though. Yeah. It could be a stretch. I could see someone arguing that Spider should be below Boom Baby, and that Buzzer should be higher. These are both fine arguments because of what Buzzer can theoretically do. But in my experience, even in the early game, this is pretty fair. They require immediate action most of the time, even if it's low level. Yeah. So it's just like a constant irritant that Boom Baby and Buzzer kind of just aren't. So lower than Boompa. And that's interesting. Maybe below Bozy though. Maybe below Bozy though. Yeah. I think this is reasonable. Lower than Boompa. I don't know if I can agree with that just because. Well, that's the thing is, like, depending on how I look at it, I could put Boompa in front of Spider and have it, and then that's the only change I make here. Like, that's maybe fair. It's maybe reasonable because Boompa takes longer to deal with. But I just think that Boompa just doesn't provide any irritation or challenge in a way that any of the other units in the entire game do. So I think this is fair, but it kind of depends on how you look at it, because Boompa takes longer, but is less, but you don't even really have to, you could just ignore instead, and that also works, so it's challenging. Also, I would say, like, if you're just using your fists at the very start, that maybe Spider and Boom Baby and Buzzer are a bit more challenging than Boompa is also at that point, because you can't destroy Boom Baby now, and you also can't destroy Buzzer very easily, and Spider will spawn so many of them, where Boompa can be destroyed. So with a zero weapon, I think Boompa is probably the weakest of any enemy in the game. But with a solid weapon, then it's like, well, I could kill spiders in one shot. Well, but they'd be more annoying than Boom Baby, so you can also kill in one shot, basically. Buzzers would be also kill in one or two shots, you know. But it kind of depends on the overall initial interaction. You can fist fight Boompa. Yeah, Boompa is strangely weak in terms of that element. It depends on how you look at it. Okay. Lower than Buzzer at least. Boompa gets in the way, like Spider. That's fair. You could go a different route where spiders will spawn in every room, so it's like, I think spiders are more annoying than Boompa, but Boompa might take longer per individual Boompa versus per individual spider. I'm thinking of spiders as the overall thing on the map, you know. But let me go ahead now. Boompa's mines are super annoying if you have loot around. Yeah, I could see that. I've not found them to be too much of a problem, but I could definitely see that. being an issue. I usually try to bait them into the Boompa, and like I feel like as well, something I'll do sometimes is if I got a lot of loot in the extractor and Boompa spawns a spider, I'll just wait next to Boompa until the spider like secures itself to the ground, then I'll start running, and then it'll explode and damage Boompa without, yeah. Anyway, okay, I'm too much on spiders, okay? But I think it's sort of interesting. Let's go to tricky. What do I want to talk about next? I think Wailer might be an interesting one because I know that they're going to be, I think Wailer's a good one to go to now. We'll get to Rotten Kids soon, but Wailer now. Flame Canada, yo. Welcome to the stream, Flame Canada. Appreciate you popping in. I hope you'll enjoy your time here. I'm going right now through a tier list on every enemy in the game and chatting about them and really placing them and trying to brainstorm. But then we'll be back to pushing for 100 floors deep before getting to more tier lists on the way because I've got a few of them. Oh, Cosmo Live. Oh, nice. Yeah, I'd love to have you in here on my phone. Hey, fair. Thanks for coming back around. But let's look at Wailer. Appreciate that water reminder very much. Thanks so much, Sama. You definitely got to keep drinking my water. Do that voice good. So, cause we got some stuff we want to get to today. But Wailer. Let's get to Wailer and let's think about Wailer here. How might I place Wailer across everything? I think that Wailer has pros and cons. Let's kind of go through them. So, Wailer's pros, I would say largely Wailer's strengths. Thanks for that follow very much. It goes a long way. Appreciate you, Cosmo. So Wailer's strengths, one of the biggest ones is going to be that even after they're dead, and just in general, that when you're a certain distance from them, instead of just screaming at you and getting ready to come in and attack, they shift into a different mode, essentially, which is where they glow and they send out a blue barrier, and then that explodes and pushes everything everywhere, and there's nothing you can do about it, because as soon as it starts, they will, like, their body will have it on it even if you destroy them. So Wailer is very threatening in that way. That's a huge strength for Wailer. Probably easily their biggest strength, really, is just that move is so threatening. Their basic attack and chasing and everything is really not a big deal at all. And if all they did was attack and chase in that way, they would be right down at the bottom. Right down at the bottom. Maybe C tier, potentially just D tier though at that point. But that specific ability is intensely strong. That I is such a good streamer, so genuine and pure. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it. So let's talk about this. So Wailer expands, explodes. If you break them, they fall to the ground. I've got a theory in my head right now that you could potentially grab an item and push the body, because it's probably the body that the explosion is tied to, not specifically, not the location, if that makes sense. Because I notice when you shoot them, they do fall over and that location, it's not like it's exactly where they were. So in theory, if you had enough push, movement is enabled, not at the moment, but they will be eventually, but not for a while. But I appreciate you very much, Cosmo Live. I'm glad you're enjoying. I'm glad you're interested in that element of the stream, because it's one I worked on quite a bit. But anyway, okay. So yeah, like I think that there's an interesting theory to the body. Yeah, it is the body. So to me this makes sense. You can jump kick, cancel the explosion. Right. Really cancel it outright. It doesn't like just send it away and then explode over there. That's interesting. But okay. So there's Wailer's biggest strength. Let's talk about weaknesses. One. Let me think about this. What is Wailer's biggest weakness? I guess Wailer's biggest weakness is that it's actually just not super threatening. Like, they do not have a whole ton of health, it feels like, and they don't have a gimmick that is absolutely terrifying. Their gimmick is just annoying, and it, like, damages things, it damages you, it pushes things, it's got good radius, it forces you in a direction. Like, all these things are true, 100%, absolutely. But let's then compare that against what else we have in here. It's actually interesting because although Wailer, I mean, without a doubt, so let's say we were to put it in C tier. Without a doubt, Wailer's ability, that one ability, is way more threatening than any of these things could possibly be, and does a lot more to your character, to the surrounding environment, whatever. So like anything you have with, let's say, Chipper. Let's now talk about Chipper and Big Jack. So Big Jack is threatening, chases you down, but it's very predictable. Wailer, even if you can predict them, if you don't kill them before they start it up, what are you going to do about it? Chipper's strength, or one of their biggest strengths, is that they can go around breaking stuff and pushing stuff and messing with things and distracting you and attacking you. Wailer locks that in from down range. So Wailer easily beats out Chipper. It's not really a competition. And so we've got ourselves in B tier. And this is where it starts to get a little bit more tricky, to be honest. Because yes, Wailer, 100% more threatening to items, more threatening to the character too, no doubt about that. But where do they actually place against someone, for example, whose gimmick is that they one-shot you? or someone whose gimmick is that they destroy everything around with Grainrot, which is a different sort of thing that lasts longer past itself, and is also very much more mobile. Wailer is really easy to hit, so compared to Belcher even, Wailer doesn't really have that. I do think Wailer above Creepstalker, though, is probably very reasonable. So, Observer, definitely harder than Wailer. They have a unique ability that is very threatening. Bigger Jack can one-shot you. Wailer just does not have the guns for that. Belcher can destroy a ton of things around, is hard to hit, very mobile, and has a decent amount of HP. Like, I think all three of these are definitively stronger. I think Wailer is definitively weaker, and I don't think it's all that close. I think this is the hard line, the hard cap. But let me check here. Let me check on what you're kind of thinking here. So it might, you know, and maybe people disagree with this. Let's kind of see what we think. So the body, let's see. Let me click. I'll probably click this, I guess. Jump kick, cancel explosion, cancels. We found out in the bounty. Fairly slow. Typing on phone is so buns. They do die quickly, yeah. Pretty low HP. I have some info about Rotten Kid that may or may not be a factor. We'll get there. We'll get there 100%. B sounds fair. I think B is fair. I think top of B is fair. I think bottom of B might be a little bit of a disservice. I do think B, like, they're a great deal stronger than C tier and reasonably stronger than Creepstalker, but they're both kind of gimmick enemies for sure. Let's kind of scroll down. Hi, Amrush. How you doing? Nice to have you back. Nice to have you back. Glad to see you're popping back in. Nice to see you. So B sounds fitting. Just so you know, it's Orbserver. Is it really Orbserver, not Observer? I'm a fool. For future reference. I appreciate that. Tiered 1 bajillion bits. What? Appreciate you. Imagine it breaks it now, but here we go. So there you have it in terms of Wailer. I think that's a pretty reasonable outcome. It seems like people are not too disagreeing on that. Question for you for Creepstalker: how do you probably deal with them or his lunge attack? I always default to dropkick, but that hurts yourself as well. I mean, certainly if you have decent weapons, that'd be the play. But if you're going from scratch, I mean, dropkick's certainly not bad. It damages you a little bit, but the trade-off is reasonably fair. You can also bait him out, and you can bait him into the extractor. When I'm first starting and learning and I don't have a ton of HP, I would say extractor's your best bet, because unlike some characters, it is possible to just do extractor, and they're not that hard to send into it. So extractor is probably your strongest bet. Then once you have a decent weapon, I mean, ranged weapons really do solve 90% of enemies, and you can prioritize the enemies that are specifically challenging to fight well out and about, and focus specifically on Creepstalkers and certain other enemies when doing that. So there's like two angles to it, right? So there's extractor. For almost everything in the game is extractor focused when you're new, and then from there you shift into ranged weapons for specifically the strongest of them, and then melee or extractor for the others. That'd be my argument. And also you can kick them into pits, I mean, as well, besides just extractor. That's a good point. So appreciate that, Rosie. So sleepy, but I can't fall asleep. Well, fair enough. I mean, I'm glad you're finding yourself here. If you can fall asleep, obviously there's, you know, I hope that you do. You know, I don't want you to be if it's keeping you up, you know. Make the right choice for yourself, but I do appreciate you very much, Cosmo there, Flame. Question for Creepstalker, let's see. So, lure to extractor for a new player. Lure into pit is safer than extractor, fair. Lure in a spike trap, true. Blade trap, true. I remember him taking shortcuts when jumping. Paparosi, the S5 guy? Yeah. Paparosi, well, Paparosi's not just the guy that was typing S5 in the chat to send me into the flames. But is also like an extremely talented Grainrot player who is 100 plus floors deep. I dream of the same location for myself very soon, hopefully, potentially even today. But yes, Paparosi's a treasured member of the chat here. If you can go across a boarded area, you can cut the corner and it will lead across the bed. Okay, so let me now go on to the next one. We've only got a few left, genuinely, only a few left to go through. So let's think about which ones to go for. I'm kind of tempted towards Rot Doctor because I think it's relevant to what I was just talking about. So let's open up Rot Doctor and real quick about the spider. Run it. And then we can get into Rot Doctor because I think Rot Doctor is fascinating. You don't need a symbol for it to spawn. For spider, that's interesting. I for some reason it felt like that might be true to me already, but I don't really know why. As a room. Oh, there are Rot rooms where it can spawn regardless of spider symbols. That makes sense, even though I didn't realize that. Appreciate that. So let's now, I don't know if it changes anything for Spider for me, but I do think that it's good intel. So Rot Doctor. Rot Doctor is a spooky one, and the reason Rot Doctor is so spooky, particularly for newer players, is, as you can see, if you zoom, enhance, No feet. I don't mean that in any kind of no feet, and that's bad. Because the extractor doesn't go in. It just doesn't seem to go in. Unless you can dropkick him direct into extractor, this guy will not go. And it's dropkicking in this game is really good for pushing people, but it's not really good for pushing them specific directions, because you have to hit at the right spot of the foot's hit in the right moment. So like if I jump dropkick, I might hit with the side of the foot technically, and it shoots them to the right, shoots them to the left, shoots them wherever, shoots them behind me sometimes. Like, it's just really hard to predict, especially with Rot Doctor for whatever reason. So it is hard to do. And so because they do not walk onto it and there's no way to bait them onto it, if they attack, they're not going to go onto the extractor. They're just going to be above it. That's tough. Sucks in enemies. Oh, that's good intel, because I've tried doing that a few times and it never felt like it worked for me. So I feel like Rot Doctor is very hard to get in the extractor. It may be the case that if you can bait the attack, it could work. Bait them with a gramophone onto the extraction pit. There might be some answers. I've just generally found Rot Doctor to be challenging in that way. They're the hardest, one of the hardest when I was first starting out enemies, when I'm trying to go for that extractor strat. It doesn't seem to work on them almost as, even close to as well. So that would be your Rot Doctor. Let me see. So we're saying ads. There might be a 3 minute delay here. So what I'm gonna do, it's got to be. Well, I guess you can't see it right now. But let me say, only way to avoid onboarding ads, and I bulk them for a long ad-free experience after. So just once an hour instead of several times. So that. All right, let me see. So what are we kind of saying in here? Yeah, you got it. When can the doctor spawn? I always grant him all my ranged weapons when I see him. Let me see here. When I see him, can't remember using him or seeing him with melee early on. When can the doctor spawn? Doctor can spawn any level. Yeah. The first level I've had him spawn definitely before, and especially while I was trying to learn and understand. A bit of a challenging one. It's just luck. I mean, it's just not luck, but I guess it's just it's statistically going to happen that some people have very different experiences than others with specific enemies, and so, much like with bosses as an example as well. So this makes sense. But Rot Doctor spawn at any level. Only way to avoid onboarding ads. That was my thing there. I'm going to bed. All right. Well, I appreciate you very much for popping in, Cosmo. Then I must be crazy luck so far. Seems to be rare early on. That's fair. I think I've got him in level 1, level 2 before. When I was first learning the game, my first level, I think I fought and was able to figure out how to beat the big lumbering oaf guys potentially, or early on at least. I think I baited them into attacking over the extractor, but this guy was much harder, maybe on the second level. But yeah, I appreciate you being here or hanging around for the time you were here, Flame Cannon. But let's go now to, let's see. So that's all the argument for why they're strong. Has to do with how well they hold up above or around the extractor compared to other enemies. And I should also mention, I think they can hear because ads. That's fair. Yeah, for Flame Cannon, yeah, probably not. You got 25 more seconds on ads, but I'll just carry forward here. It is what it is. So one other thing that they do is their attacks are different. This is probably the least important thing that they have from my perspective. I think that for a lot of people, the Rot Doctor's strength would be that they can not only just regularly attack you, the Rot Doctor's also capable of swinging at you, knocking your soul directly out of your body, and then taking that soul and moving around with it and taking it somewhere else. I just kind of find that to be not important. I've never really found it to be. It's sort of just distracting for a minute, and then you go back to your body and you're good again. So I don't really, even beyond, I would go a step further. I think it's actually better than if they just constantly attack you, because if they just attack you, they could just break you. But if they take your soul and you go back in, you don't even lose any HP. Anyway, I kind of consider Rot Doctor's attack to be their weaker end. It's more so that they're flying that makes them kind of annoying to deal with. So that's my perspective on it. They run back to your body and attack it. Yeah, but not before you can get there. I mean, I've never found that they were able to out move me to my own body. So Soul stealing is really scary the first time. Yeah, exactly. That's spooky. It's just like when you get knocked out of your body, where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm dead. What happened? I thought they like, are they really this dangerous? Apparently, but actually, as soon as they let you go, you just go right back to your body, and and then you're back in your body, and they didn't do any damage to you, and you now have a little bit of a lead on them. You can run away, and then you can shoot them or attack them or whatever it is you need, or just escape. But yeah, if there's another enemy, there's a threat to that, I suppose. And so like, I'm just saying that I don't consider it to be their like really that high up on their list of traits that are good. But it's not, I mean, it's not the worst. It's definitely not the worst. It's just that it reduces their ability as a solo unit to do a bunch of damage to you. Another enemy could come along though and break the body, which is a good point. Let me see here. I just never found that it was really happening to me. And I must be crazy luck so far. Let me see what we're kind of saying here. Hanging out. Oftentimes your body falls, but they run back to you. Right? True, if it falls and then you get back into it, it takes a second for them to get back up. I've not really found that happening to me, but I understand that could happen, and that would be bad because if you were sprinting when they did it, then you would fall over. Or if you're walking, then I don't think you would likely fall over. And so if you're sprinting and they did it, they knock your body over, then you jump out as a soul, then you go back as a soul, you get there first, you get inside, you start standing up, they maybe have time to get that extra attack in, which would be pretty bad. Although that's the attack they would have earned by just attacking you instead of stealing your soul, and now you have a chance to avoid it. So, you know. But there's another enemy that enemy can and will kill your body while you're on your doctor visit. I suppose that's fair. They are fast moving. Yeah, but not as fast as your soul, right? But not as fast as your soul, and even if they do get the one attack out, it's less than just attacking. Well, it's the same as just attacking in the first place. Yeah, anyway. So like, to me. But they do have the flight advantage, and that can be kind of spooky in situations. And then what do I want to say in terms of downsides? I guess the downside would be that I don't find their soul stealing attack to be particularly threatening. Like I feel like the fact that you can get there first and then run away is such an advantage. And then another enemy could get you there, but so it's kind of a mixed bag. Where would I actually put them though? Where would I actually want to put them? The thing is, like, all that being said about the soul stealing not being that dangerous is more so because it's so flashy than anything else. Like it's the type of move that feels like it should be extremely threatening. And it is somewhat threatening, but it's not extremely threatening from my perspective. So like I would say, of course, like this is an actual combat enemy. So at the very least C tier, we'll talk about that. So all these other enemies below, I'm kind of outlining them as being self-destructive in terms of Bozy and Boompa and maybe Buzzer, or just being overall not that effective as fighting enemies in terms of Spider, Boom Baby, and Buzzer. Easily above that. We clear both those requirements. Rot Doctor does not destroy themselves. In fact, they're very good at not destroying themselves. And they, in terms of the extract, they're much better at it than Big Jack is. And then the other end of it, where they're just not effective, they do good damage. So easily better than that. They're better at avoiding death than Big Jack is. Chipper, I would say they're more direct and they're faster and they're more relentless than Chipper is. I would say by enough that I would actually probably say at least B tier, but we're starting to get into the toss-up terrain here because yes, they're fast, yes, they're powerful, but are they worse than a gimmick enemy? They kind of just are a gimmick enemy, which is more threatening than just a raw power enemy, but less threatening than a multi-gimmick enemy like Belcher or Bigger Jack or Orbserver, because each of those three have multiple gimmicks they can throw it at you. I would say Rot Doctor kind of has one main gimmick and then it's just relatively fast and strong outside of that, much like Big Jack, for example. A little bit, I mean, they're definitively better than Big Jack. There's not really a comparison there. Now, is their speed advantage better than, like, if we talk about the gimmick, I guess, okay, I think their speed advantage might actually be their strongest gimmick, along with just like their sort of mobility in general in terms of avoiding extractors being much stronger than most things. So I would say like it's a toss-up here between these two. Wailer, well, let's think about Wailer, because if it's better than Wailer, then it's definitely better than Creep Stalker. That might be a little harder. So that's actually tricky. Rot Doctor versus Wailer is a little bit challenging. Wailer blows things up and can't be stopped after, where Rot Doctor's just strong. I think this is probably a reasonable spot right in the middle. Probably right in the middle, right down the center. Let me see. Yeah, the fast moving is a fair argument. They're a great deal faster than a lot of other enemies, and they're fairly relentless. Vendetta goes back to demo times. Let's see. I can't see any of the remainders being S tier. Well, we've got 3 remainders, so let's go through them. Let's go through them and consider what we might find. So Peekaboo, Rotten Kid, Headcrab. You're gonna... you saying that's making me... Okay, so we're gonna disagree in some crazy ways on one of these three. And I think you already know which one it's gonna be, because I think I've talked about it a bit before, but I also think... I think if there's any of them that has a chance here, I wonder if we'll even... Is it possible? Is it possible that we might even find any solid ground here? Because I think I've got a really strong opinion on one of these particular enemies. But, let's start with Rotten Kid, I suppose. Well, shoot. I think it's kind of obvious. I think it's kind of obvious which one I'm going to say is. But, so here we go. So Rotten Kid. We'll start with Rotten Kid because we did talk about this earlier. We were talking about what are the mechanics of Rotten Kid, how does it work, and, like, is it just a kid that follows you around and then you just bait it into the pit? Or don't. I mean, I suppose just let it follow you around. So Rotten Kid's main gimmicks include punching them, making them aggressive, and that they inherently are always going to add Grainrot to you anytime that they're nearby you. So Rotten Kid is interesting in that way. In that Grainrot can be somewhat threatening. On solo, less so than on multiplayer. Not always. I found Rotten Kid, like, I swear Rotten Kid doesn't always do it, but I haven't seen one that didn't in such a long time that I feel like Rotten Kid is just rotten. But I'll take your word for it. There might be versions of them that aren't. But it's like, I feel like I find it regardless. You can cure. Okay, I was going to say, I feel like I always find it, but yeah, okay, you can cure him. But generally speaking, Rotten Kid's gimmick is that they will apply rot to you. I wonder how that works. I've never cured him. I don't even know how that works. But I thought that there was like an idea that you could take him to the home base and cure him or something. But yeah, from my experience, Rotten Kid's gimmick is if they get hit by anything. Now, what this could include, let's say this. So Rotten Kid, what it could include for Rotten Kid is you picking up an item and moving it and setting it somewhere, and maybe it just bounces off him, and then he's like, oh, time to die. Yeah. But, well, he doesn't say that, but, he gets very aggressive. And so that's kind of the main gimmick is aggression and then just constant following. The problem with Rotten Kid is he just will walk onto the extractor for any reason. And also, Grainrot basically doesn't matter. They are a self-fulfilling prophecy where they apply Grainrot to you, and if you get 100 Grainrot, you attack them by accident through the Grainrot on its own, and then they get aggressive and try to kill you. But even when they're aggressive, they're kind of slow. Like, the knife spinning is fast at first and slows down, and then they're just sitting there for a while. So if you avoid the first knife spin, you can get far enough away to basically just be fine forever. So yeah, Rotten Kid is definitely a D tier, and is in fact, in my mind, weaker than Boompa because they're so easy to bait. This is probably the very weakest enemy in the entire game. However, it's not like they're just get attacked and then become aggressive, like, for example, Peekaboo. They are additionally get aggressive, but also if you don't deal with them, now it's constant Grainrot time. Probably more threatening in multiplayer. I'd be open to that idea, and if you play a lot of multiplayer and you find that to be true, I think you could put it right in the middle of D tier, and I can't judge you for it. That makes a lot of sense to me. But end of D tier for me, because I play a lot of solo, and this guy is just like the least effective thing in the world. Let's go on now. Let's go on. Let's see. You can craft anything, and we'll go to it and say, let's keep this one. Stop following you completely. Oh, really? I have noticed he'll follow it. I've sometimes put a gramophone or something like it into the extractor, or a radiator into the extractor, just so he'll go over there so I can get rid of him while extracting the radiator at the same time, like devil for nothing kind of deal. He also dies very fast. The drop kick, he doesn't even get to spin most of the time. Yeah, it's kind of crazy with Rotten Kid. They're kind of shockingly weak. But it makes sense because they're a gimmick character. They're a gimmick character that is one of these mini characters. So generally, height or size is the determining factor as far as I've seen when it comes to health, or a lot of the time it feels that way. And so, like, Wailer is a lot less health than Big Jack or Rot Doctor. So Rotten Kid is very small and very fragile and very gimmicky. So it is what it is. I think it's a cool gimmick set. I actually kind of like it quite a bit. So it's a cool character, but definitely the weakest of them all. Let's now go into Peekaboo. First, though, imagine the irony in the fact that they give you rot. It makes you sick, you puke on them, they have the audacity to get angry at you. Yes, they're a Rotten Kid for sure. So Peekaboo is next. Let me pull that up. Peekaboo here has two states. They have a follow state, where at any given time, if you are not looking at them, they'll chase after you, and if you do look at them, they will stop. That's a mannequin sort of character. However, if they get damaged, I think by anything, but probably not by flame. Probably just by you punching them, moving something into them, vomiting, anything like that. So anything from you more directly than fire is, and they will become active. And in this active state, they'll be aggressive, they'll attack you, not relentlessly, and they do pretty good damage while doing it. Peekaboo is so hard to outrun them. They're fast as well, absolutely. The trouble with Peekaboo is that that very gimmick is what makes them particularly, generally fairly weak. So Peekaboo's mechanic does mean that if you want to go onto the extractor, you can actually pretty safely bait them onto it. If you try to jump past them, they do sometimes spin on you and swing quickly, but most of the time, especially if you get accustomed to doing it, it's really not that hard to deal with. And so you're able to get them directly onto the extractor with a little finagling. Not too bad. But they are a little threatening. They're much better damage and much better speed and so on than a lot of other characters. If you're not prepared for it, and Drac, I appreciate it. I do hear you, because if you do damage them, they become very threatening. They are an extractor destroy kind of enemy for sure, which does put them solidly above anything in D tier. So we've got Rotten Kid, Boompa, Buzzer, Boom Baby, Spider, Bozy the Clank. Peekaboo, unlike these characters, is a real threat under certain circumstances. These characters are really not. Bozy, I guess, technically is, but Bozy also solves for themselves fairly well. So I would say above Bozy. Big Jack versus Peekaboo. The thing is, as much as I'd really love to put Peekaboo above Big Jack, you have to be a little careful while trying to bait out their attacks onto Extractor, as an example for the Extractor kill, where Peekaboo, you don't really need almost any caution. It's unlikely you're going to look away for too long. I've just not really had it happen. The only time that they've surprised me with their attack was either, of course, if they get hit by something and all of a sudden, crap, why am I fighting this guy? Or if I'm jumping past them and it doesn't register me looking at them all the time, which can happen, which is pretty spooky. But most, almost every situation, they're just very easy to put in the cage. Where Big Jack can sometimes surprise you, where you're trying to go behind the extractor to bait them into it, but they actually don't slam the edge. They manage to hook and get you, and they do really good damage in those moments. So it's actually a real threat. I would say Big Jack versus Peekaboo is there, and we get to the ultimate, the final. This is my most controversial take. I knew it was between Bozy and Headcrab, and here we go. Oh, you guys are gonna hate what I have to say about Headcrabs. So Headcrabs. Here's my argument. Listen here, y'all. So here's my argument. Headcrabs don't do much damage. It's true. They don't have basically any health, so it's a super weak enemy, right? Here's a couple of things. They're basically like Buzzer, in a way, except they don't even blow up, right? So it seems like they'd be pretty weak. However, Headcrabs always spawn 4 of themselves. So if they were equivalent to Buzzer, they'd be 4 times harder than Buzzer. But they don't blow up. That's fair. That's true. Also, though, when you destroy a Headcrab, that's not 1 Headcrab down, now gets replaced by a random enemy. There's 4 Headcrabs, and they will spawn forever. So in the situation where Headcrabs are wandering the halls, there are 4 things constantly looking everywhere. You destroy one, a new one spawns. Destroy one, a new one spawns. It's looking all over the map. They're everywhere all the time. It's like Spider in that way, except it's wandering, and they can all show up at the same time to attack you. And they're fairly fast. They're fast, they're annoying, they have ranged attacks. Spider's ranged attack is the most predictable thing in the world because they lob it. I can just walk a little to the left, a little to the right, and I'm out of the way. We're good. This thing shoots direct at you at really pretty good speed. It's a nail gun attached to a little body, as if spiders spawn for themselves that are wandering, searching creatures that also had a nail gun instead of the lobbing attack. So here's the deal. I think that this character, so let's say, obviously it's better than D tier. I don't think anyone's going to argue with me on that. But I also think it's better than C tier because 4 of them spawn and they're relentless nuisances. And I think it's better than B tier because the gimmicks of these characters are really, they're annoying, but I kill them and now a new one spawns in. And I think it's better than A tier because I can take care of each of these guys with some careful planning, but Headcrabs are the only one that even in pretty post-game is so annoying. They spawn all the time, they're everywhere, they seek you out, they chase you down, they shoot you out. It's ridiculous. Now, admittedly, there were a couple situations where headcrabs do not matter. And those exist in like so here. Okay, I'm only found in the basement, and I've just left the door closed always except once, and they just stay there forever. Exactly. So in the basements they're fine, and in Bozy's summoning room when he drops them down they're fine. But if you find them in any other situation, 4 headcrabs spawn, they go ever Cerberus. I appreciate that, and you're very right. I did knock out a bounty, Papa Rosie. Papa Rosie. You missed my great explanation of exactly why they're so threatening. I think headcrabs are an S tier. And this is my I know this is my most controversial take. I know it's going to be, because headcrabs are so weak and they're so small and they do so little damage. But the situations where headcrabs are threatening, they are immensely threatening. And the situations where they're not, they're like spiders on steroids. They're roaming spiders with nail guns for attacks instead of lobs that always miss. And so they're like way harder than spiders, way more annoying. They spawn much faster. You kill one, another one spawns in. Pretty sure they can teleport. Yeah, they're absurd. And so I genuinely think that these are more threatening to a run than anything. than anything in the game. I think they might be the top of S tier. Is this crazy? This might be the craziest take, but I genuinely think headcrabs might genuinely just be the strongest enemy in the game. Now, there's a couple situations where they thrive, especially. The one I just mentioned, where you're wandering around, now there's one here, there's one here. Every time I turn around, there's one. It's shooting me in the back, it's shooting me in the side, it's shooting me here, shooting me there. It's shooting my stuff. I put a bed down, now it's shooting the bed. Now it broke the bed, now it's attacking me. Now there's another one coming down the hall. Like, they're just constant and relentless and bothersome. But if you, for any reason whatsoever on any run, you are so unlucky... Paparazzi, no, wait. If you are so unlucky as to be a construct for any reason in a run, headcrabs are the end of the game. I can't say the same for anybody else, okay? Listen, I can't say the same for anybody else. There's not a single, except I guess the Dreadcrawler. I mean, what are we saying? Dreadcrawler? Why am I a construct fighting a boss? That doesn't make any sense. Damage is minimal. Yeah, but they break stuff and they're relentless. And like, imagine if I'm fighting them. So like, they do like what, maybe 15, 20 damage, but they're constant. They're only S tier if you play solo. That might be true. That makes a lot of sense. In solo, they are so annoying. Like, even in the late stage, the worst stage I can run into is a headcrab stage, but I have 1,000 health now, so it's fine, okay? But at 100 HP, these things are the worst. And if I'm a construct, I can't even escape them or fight them. Like, so for example, if I'm a construct and I'm running around and I get chased by a big guy, they will attack me and destroy me in one shot, but I can just outmaneuver them probably, maybe, unless I'm the fire ant, and then I hate it. I agree with you up to this one, LOL. Fair. Okay, well, there you have it. You know, I knew you wouldn't agree with me on this one, but I genuinely think headcrabs are the strongest enemy in the game. I think there's no one else that really even comes that close. They're so frustrating. They're so annoying. They don't cause me any problems at 1,000 HP, but that shouldn't be a requirement. How many deaths are attributed to them? It doesn't matter. Listen. I in my opinion, actually, some of them are, because if I'm fighting, let's say if I'm playing regularly and I get killed by something and then I go into a construct and have to go grab my gold, this is the only enemy that's like very likely, like if I'm on any map with just any other enemy in the world, any other enemy. Listen. If I'm a construct and I've got to go grab gold from just random places, I can avoid traps. I can do I can do anything that I want, and I can grab all the gold and I can just go back home, and maybe I'll get smashed by something, maybe, but probably I'll be okay. But if I've got headcrabs waiting for me out there, I'm on a death mission. There's just no way. I'm not going to go out there and get gold from around the map as a construct with headcrabs roaming. There's 4 of them, and they know where I am, and I can't damage them, and they're faster than me. Like, compare it to anything else. I'm just saying. Like, in that situation, they're deadly, and there's nothing I can do about it, and that's happened to me before. Like, I think like, it's crazy. I mean, spiders, you could say, but spiders are 1 per room, and they don't chase you for very far. Headcrabs are relentless, and they're fast, and and if you do kill them, they just respawn. Anyway, I can see it. Anything that requires constant tension is stressful, but I personally have very little experience with them, so I gotta like, listen. That's just my argument. Okay, and I knew. I'm not rage baiting. Okay, I believe this. Is that more embarrassing to say? That's my tier list. For your viewing pleasure, we have every single enemy in the game ranked from the most annoying, most troublesome on your way through every quest, through the second boss. to the least threatening to the most simple to deal with, weighted towards how strong you'll be when you actually go against these things, of course. So Bozy the Clank is very low, particularly for that reason. But yeah, there you go. And we're gonna have more tier lists to go. So this is just the first of them. Papa Rosie mentioned wanting to see weapon tier lists. There's another one of them. We'll get to it later. But I hope you have enjoyed. I really appreciate you all for being here. If you're on YouTube, I'm going to end off there. On Twitch, we carry forward. We carry forward. These things are nothing to me. Well, listen, Rosie. Listen, Rosie. You didn't fight the second boss until you were level, like, what, 125? Okay. And I'll say this as well. You'd already played the demo. I don't know when they came out, okay? But from my experience as a player, coming from just the full game, full release, I find these things to be mad annoying. I think that they are way more annoying than other enemies. But you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. I can also be wrong. I can be wrong. All right, let me go ahead and end on YouTube. Thanks so much. Cheers, y'all. Appreciate you being here. Bang.